gets a chance to answer. And if you do also have an opportunity or want to go through, we'll let you guys do a little quick introduction on yourselves as well. So I will be calling out, so make sure you're paying attention when I call on you. All right. Sarah, are we all set?
We are all set, recording and live.
Excellent. Welcome everyone to our final in this series of our DABL Workshop Wednesdays. DABL is a product of Dane Arts, and we are very thankful to Dane Arts and Mark for all of your support and helping us get artists trained and learning different tools, business skill sets to really grow and build their art business. So with me tonight, I have Sarah Kawa, Mark, and Mark Frahe is with me this evening. We have a number of our presenters that were with us throughout this series, and we will let them introduce themselves here shortly. But before we do that, I wanted to go through and just give a little overview about DABL and just a little bit about our stats for this year. So prior to this year, we had done in-person business-to-business art fairs where we took working visual artists and invited our business community and really trying to make that bridge between the artist and the business community and connecting them through sales and other collaborations. We did those events for 5 years. And this year, prior to COVID, we were a little ahead of the game. We decided that we wanted to take this into the workshops and really focus on the business side of the arts. And we decided to take it online, and then COVID hit. So that is how we did a quick pivot and did these workshops every other Wednesday from April through now. And we did approximately 14 workshops. This would be our 15th one. And we are really happy to say that we had an average of 17 people logging into Zoom. We went Facebook Live, and we had an average of about 101 people viewing on Facebook Live and an average of 32 views on YouTube. So that is average, but our top numbers were 530 views on YouTube, 1,416 on Facebook Live, and a total of 235 participants on Zoom. So many of you have been at more than one of our workshops, and those, we are very grateful for you trusting us to bring you talented, creative individuals to teach you, and also be your receptiveness to learning and being open to what we are doing. So we're really grateful. We, like I said, had 14 different facilitators, and I'm just going to scroll down a little bit more so I can see more of our stats here. We covered topics from social media, branding, funding, commissions, podcasts as a source of expression and business, becoming full-time artists, the science of art and the science within art, allyship, and networking. So those were the topics that we covered this year. As we look ahead to next year, looking at what different types of topics are going to help artists feel confident in pursuing their business side of, pursuing their art as well as getting their sales and making connections out there in the community. So those are our main stats and our overview that I wanted to touch on. I want to take a moment to let our presenters introduce themselves, and if you can, when I call on you, if you could say your name and what your topic was, and introduce yourself, and then if you could also say what is something that you learned during the pandemic as it relates to being an artist or working in the arts world. That might be a lot, but if you want me to repeat, I certainly can. And Olivia, I'm gonna start with you.
Thank you. Thanks, Megan. I really appreciate, having Dane Arts be able to provide this and DABL provide this platform. So I'm Olivia Wisden. I am the co-founder and CEO of Underbelly. We are a creative agency. So we really work on branding and marketing. So that was actually our my presentation was really talking about how artists can use branding to help distinguish themselves and kind of attract new customers, and the importance of branding and marketing. I think one of the things that I've learned from this time, like during COVID, is I apologize for that beeping, making dinner, but is that artists and creatives are some of the most nimble and kind of quick on their feet and in the moment of all the professions, and that has been a huge asset during our time right now, because we've made massive pivots during this time. And so I think seeing what we've learned from being artists and working with artists and creatives, of being kind of in the moment and being able to kind of be quick on your feet, has been the most important part for us, at least, with COVID.
Awesome. Thank you, Olivia. That was great. Let's see. I am going to go on to Rachel. Rachel, are you ready? Oh, hold on. Let's get you unmuted.
I'm sorry, I started talking. Hi, I'm Rachel. I actually kicked off the DABL series with a workshop for social media for creativepreneurs. So it was a lot of fun. And I would say one of the things I've learned during COVID for me, I didn't even say who I was. Oh yeah, and I'm the founder of the Little Book Project Wisconsin, and a writer. And I do some multimedia design art too. But one of the things I learned like in COVID so far is just like how right now is such a great time to be networking and finding out about things and resources that you didn't know existed. I feel like I have learned so much in the past, like even just within the last 6 to 7 months, about different organizations and opportunities for artists that I didn't even know existed, not only on a local level, but within the region and also throughout the country. So, and then also just those one-on-one times to make connections or finding ways that you can possibly partner with other artists or other creativepreneurs that are doing things that are different from you, but there is a synergy there in your mission or your long or short-term goals.
Awesome. Well, welcome again. Thank you. And thanks, Rachel, for kicking us off on this. It was quite an adventure, and we're really glad that you were a part of it. Walter, I'm going to throw it over to you.
All right. Walter Jankowski, reinvention consultant with Better Dash Faster. I am not an artist. However, I spoke on this year, I spoke on riding the wave of disruption, networking, and closing deals in a virtual world. So basically, how do you go after and network in a virtual world, and targeting people that you want to meet, and then how do you make those deals? And Mark and I did a session. It was our last face-to-face session where we talked about entrepreneurs and making the B2B sales. And Mark can tell more about that because he was a great partner in that. Oh, what I learned, Rachel, you hit the nail on the head. I literally made it a point to almost at least 3 to 4 times a week, I was taking some other webinar. I was learning, and my first target learning was, how do I do this in my job in consulting? How do I do this better online? Because I have no idea when this is going to end. And so I realized I need to learn how to do my job online. And so I learned everything I could about doing online seminars, doing activity-based, and how do I strategic planning online? How do I do all of this online? And I love it.
Awesome. And then you figured it out. So that's great. Here you are. We really appreciate it. All right. I'm going to throw it over to Tommy.
Hey, everybody. I'm Tommy Sweeney. I don't do anything other than I'm just a good old-fashioned artist. I have no credentials and I don't do anything else. I just make pictures and people give me money. And I'm gonna, my presentation was how to do that, actually, how to make a full-time living out of your artwork. And it should be like a 12-hour conversation, but we distilled it down to 2 or 3. What I learned in the COVID era was you have to kind of read your clients. Some of them still want to meet in person. And so you have to decide what the cost benefit of that in-person meeting is going to be. And other people are horrified by the idea of meeting in person. And you got to kind of pick up on those signals too. so I did whichever they preferred. And so far I'm still alive. So I'm going to keep doing that until I'm not, which might be Thanksgiving.
Yes, this is there's a, I think quite a parallel with the COVID world, right? And the business world is we're always making cost benefit analysis all the time and deciding what is in our best interest of ourselves and our business. And it's a constant pivot. I think entrepreneurs were probably in a good place for COVID and having to pivot because that's what you all do every day, all the time. It is day in and day out, and it is not something new that entrepreneurs and artists, I think, are up against. So we do have another presenter that joined us. Araceli joined us. Araceli, if you would be so kind as to unmute yourself and tell us who you are and what presentation you gave, and then if you could talk about a little bit about how you've pivoted and some of the, maybe one of the biggest takeaways you've had from COVID.
Yeah, my internet's kind of, yeah. So do you just like go a little bit later?
Oh yeah, you're cutting out. Okay, we'll come back to you. And hopefully we'll get that'll be back out there for you. But Walter, you mentioned that Mark Weller assisted you on that. Mark, did you have something that you wanted to jump in and say about your presentation that you partnered with Walter and maybe how that came about? I'm throwing you on the spot. I know you weren't really here for presentations, but since Mark mentioned, or Walter mentioned, I want to give you a chance.
Yeah, no problem. Walter was the keynote speaker, and he was looking for an example of somebody trying to hustle as hard as they could. And so he invited me to just kind of give, what does a typical month look like? And I ran through that. But, as I thought that was a pretty good night for both Walter and I and the folks we had. I don't know, 20, 25 people in the room with us. But now it looks also quaint and also old school, where most of this happens face to face, or you make a phone call, you say, I'd like to drop by tomorrow, can I do that? Or I want to set up a meeting so I can understand better who the decision makers are in your organization. So when it comes time to build a new building and somebody says, what about art? I'm already have a relationship with that person. Well, folks, as you all know, the world has changed dramatically, and you've heard the word pivot so far tonight probably 4,000 times, and that's exactly what everybody is struggling with. Some perhaps more successfully than others, and then you still have all of the normal obstacles, normal hurdles to get over, COVID or no COVID. My last out of the blue surprise is a company that originally, I'm looking at Tommy now, started on Atwood and what he started, and then has been sold a couple times. And I have continued with that company as my printer and as my framer, and have been delighted beyond belief. A long-term relationship. What was that, 15 years ago, maybe, Tommy? Out of the blue, I got an email that said they're no longer going to be custom printing or custom framing. And
I'm glad to hear that, Mark, because I also got that email, and the first thing I thought was maybe I was the only one who got the email.
No, they're dumping both of us, Tommy.
Excellent. I won't take it as personally.
Good. But another example of welcome to the crazy 2020,
Yeah, that's probably one of the last things you thought you were going to have to pivot is maybe your printer and framer, because that was a constant and a solid, so always having to find those new things is really challenging. Rachel, thank you, Mark. I appreciate your comments. Rachel, I wanted to ask you an additional question. You said that you came across so many things that you hadn't even known were out there. Can you give us one example of maybe one of those new connections or new collaborations or things that you came across that really like stands out to you?
Sorry, I'm not doing a good job of controlling my own sound. The Arts Administrators of Color Network. So, and through them, and they have their own private, I mean, they have a public Facebook page, but they also have a private networking group on Facebook as well. I actually was had the privilege of presenting at their virtual conference, what they call an annual convening that happened just 2 weekends ago. But I mean, just even from through them, I've met so many other artists and writers who are based at other writing hubs that I don't currently teach for, like Lighthouse in Denver, for instance, is based out in Colorado. And a lot of people just either attending the convening or even if they didn't, just through the networking group, it's been really great. And they've been really awesome about just really making sure that people are aware of job openings. So for artists who also want to work in arts administrations for different organizations, there's usually multiple job postings throughout the country posted in the Facebook group every week. And then in addition to grant and funding opportunities. And then they've even just there's some really cool grassroots organizations where people are trying to figure out mutual aid. The South, and a lot of these organizations are based in the South, so they're kind of doing it on a regional basis. But I think it's just even great food for thought of just different ways that artists could be collaborating all over the country.
That's a really great example too. And looking sort of continuing to find those niches or those groups where you can collaborate and you have similar skill sets or interests or needs. That's a great example, and something that how did you stumble across that?
Well, they were actually one of the first arts related organizations that tried to create an emergency grant fund for artists people who suddenly were not going to be able to perform or their exhibitions got canceled. So they were small micro grants, but they were $250. And so I saw someone post about reshare their post on Twitter. And then I went to their website because I'd never heard of the organization before. And then I realized that they do all these other things. So then I reached out to them and then I got invited and added to the private, like I said, Facebook group. And so, yeah, things just was just one thing after another from there. Just started because we're all at home, started to communicate with them more online.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. And it's such an important piece too, that it's a national group. And so you're getting information and connections and learning what's happening outside of our own, especially now, our micro bubbles, right? Our houses, these tiny little groups that we are able to have organic conversations with. So to be able to find that across the country and even across the world, depending on what you do, is super valuable. That's awesome. I'm so glad to hear about that. And there's definitely some people I want to make sure I share that information with as I've been working with art and craft vendors. So,
and then a lot of the, just quickly, just to piggyback off of that, in case I forget to say it later, if you go to the Little Book Wisconsin website, I actually have added a lot of the I have a resources tab, and I've added a lot of the things that I've found out about through Arts Administrator of Color Network, including a direct link to them on the website there too.
That's awesome. And you are a pro, because that was a fabulous plug.
Okay. I don't make any money off of it. I'm just letting you guys know it's there. So you don't have to go combing the internet. I just have it all on one page.
And it's great for your website too, because I think that you have so many great connections and things to offer. So to get more people on your website is awesome too. So I'm going to throw this over to you, Walter, next. What are some ways that you've been collaborating during COVID? That you found that worked well for you?
Me personally?
You or your clients. It could be either.
I think the best thing that I have been doing, and this can apply to anybody, is I have been reaching out to all of the people that all of the associations and the organizations that have Zoom calls. I have probably given, I want to say in the last 3 months, 25 different presentations. And, it's not necessarily, oh, I want to drum up more business, but what it does is it puts you in as, oh, are you the guy that talked about this? And I would say that to any of you on this call, that if you're an expert in something, which you all are experts in something, go and reach out to those organizations, because I'll tell you, they are looking for people to talk. And you never know what's going to come out of those. In a chat, somebody says, "Hello, can I follow up with you and do it, whatever?" Just get out there and be out in front of people. So that's what my
Getting out there. That's awesome. Thank you. Olivia, I'm going to throw that same question over to you. What are some ways that you have collaborated during COVID, or you want to give advice to others to collaborate?
Yeah, it's been an interesting, we've always tried to collaborate with most of our projects. And so this summer actually was our first time kind of experimenting with how do we do a digital exclusive only event and have multiple collaborators. I found actually that it has worked pretty well, being able to do Zoom calls, and now that people are comfortable with Zoom and comfortable with video calls, that it's actually been pretty easy to be able to get people on for a short call or a short meeting, where actually I found it may have been more difficult to get everyone in the same room together at the same time. So I've actually found that it's been really great to collaborate, and it's really opened our networks to more people, which was something I don't think I would have expected. But it took a little bit, I think, everyone getting used to the technology and kind of getting used to that sort of stuff. But I think it's the video calls it's still personal but professional. So we found that video calls have been great.
Olivia, I don't know if it's because we've made connections through this or I'm more aware of your operations, but I've certainly seen the conversations of collaborations that you guys are doing popping up more and more in social media and other places, and people talking about Undervalley, and I'm like, oh yeah, there's a new connection. Look, they made they got that thing that they've been working on. So, I think that speaks highly to what you are doing, that you are getting out there more and more and making those connections, and that is growing. So that's awesome. Congratulations.
And I think kind of with that as well is that that people are also seemingly more open to connections right now, because like we're all kind of separate in our own little bubbles, that we have found that people are really eager to do collaborations if you have an interest, if you have an idea or a project that you want to pitch. So, kind of going off Walter, it's like reach out to people, because more often than not, we found that people are really eager to actually talk, and especially if you have an idea.
Awesome. And making that space. That's great. Tommy, to you with that same question.
Well, I collaborate with my wife, who works with me full time as well. So we collaborate, but we also collaborate on dinner, and not on dishes as much, but on dinner and art. But it is kind of fun to see that people are much more willing to have phone calls like this or Zoom calls, and the in-person stuff even, which is kind of crazy. But I think people are really just happy to see something happening in the world. The best thing I can say to people that I meet is that I haven't stopped or slowed down at all for 2020. And just people hearing that is like a relief. I don't even have to say anything else. That's like, oh, thank you. Somebody's been doing something. But I have done nothing at home. Like there's 100,000 things at home that I should have done in 2020 that I watched TV instead. So pros and cons. I didn't slow down at work. I slowed down at home. Caught up on TV.
Tommy, can I ask how are you selling your work?
I have a pretty good network of relationships with architects and designers. In fact, my work is actually only available through an architect or an interior designer. So they spec my work when they build spaces or remodel. Even if somebody's downsizing, they still got to redo the place. So whether we're going up or down in the economy, it's never really affected me. People building buildings aren't generally the people that are as affected by changes in the economy like this. It's people on the ground that work in that are affected. I work with the Ivory Tower guys, and work-wise, it works for me pretty well. So it's a book of business I've had since the 90s. So it's the more fun thing for me is actually extending my reach beyond what the norm is, beyond what I'm comfortable with. It's easy for me to just sit around and wait for people to get in touch with me. And the recessions are good little reminders that maybe that's not the ideal. But also the important thing is that when the recession ends, you can't stop with the reaching out. That's what was part of my presentation, is you have to balance the sales and the production always. You can't respond. You always have to stay ahead of whatever the times are, just by keeping those things in balance. And I am guilty as anybody else. It's more fun to have people just call you than to call them. It's always more fun. But I think it toughens you up to have to do it yourself, and it keeps you frosty. And as an entrepreneur, that's an exceptional skill that I always want to make sure I'm always exercising. So I make an effort to do 5 cold sales calls a month, just so I know I can. I don't even care what happens with them, but I do it just to stay in shape.
That is important, because cold calling and trying to put yourself out there can be uncomfortable. And
the worst way efficiency wise, it's a terrible use of time. It's not the correct way to do it, but it keeps you mean. And if you can do it, then the more efficient ways are going to come a lot easier. It's the dumbest way to do stuff, go at somebody cold. But if you can engage from that level, doing the normal stuff is much easier. I admit it's kind of fun. It's kind of like hunting or ice fishing, which I do. But I don't hunt or ice fish. I do cold calling instead from a cabin in the woods.
If I can add to that, Tommy, when I was presenting that, and same with Mark, we were talking about, targeting, your target customer, and you have found that. You've found, interior designers and architects that if you can find 1 or 2 and build a relationship with them, then they call you. Then, all you need is 5 of those contacts, and then they start calling you. Good for you. Kudos. You do always have to keep,
well, I'll tell you a secret. This is it's important for everybody.
Everybody lean in.
Oh yeah, I'm going to mute for the secret. But when people decide to buy art for their business, there's no way you can be in the room when they make that decision. You'd have to be in all the rooms all the time. So my job is to make sure that somebody in that room says, hey, what if we call Tommy? And I spend a great deal of time making sure that somebody in that room brings me up. And it is, if you see a building going up, it's too late. That conversation has already taken place. So you gotta plan years and years ahead of time. And it's the long game, man. I mean, I have people that I work with, and they've moved through different companies, and they bring me with them when they go to a new company. And it's actually a super fun process. I enjoy it very much.
Awesome. Thank you for all of that, and building off of each other, because that's what this is about today, is about conversation and reflection. Araceli, I think your audio is working, because I would love to have you jump in and join us in this conversation. I have 2 questions for you.
Okay, go ahead.
Awesome. First, can you, I'm going to ask if you could introduce yourself and say a little bit about what you presented on. And then if you could, from there, talk about something that you've learned through COVID as it relates to the work that you do.
Yeah, sure. So my name is Araceli Esparza, and I am the CEO, owner, founder of Wisconsin Mujer. That means Wisconsin Woman. We are a multimedia social engagement company. And so unlike just marketing, we also host events. We help fundraise with nonprofits around the community, help them target marginalized communities in particular. I only work with BIPOC-led agencies and movement makers. So yeah, and with support from Dane Arts. Yes, Mark, that is very true. So that was very recent though. Prior to that, we've been working pretty much crowdfunding is like how we made our break into the scene, you know, as an entrepreneur agency. And so that's what was my presentation, was crowdfunding and utilizing Kiva and utilizing places like GoFundMe. So you have an idea, you're an artist and you really want to do something big. So we a couple of the folks already have talked about it. You know, definitely like email marketing was a little bit of what we touched on. Again, I could have talked about this subject for like 12 hours, right? Because it encompasses so many different factions, like marketing, like wholesales, like wholesale calling, like closing sales, and so forth. What have I learned in particular? I want to, I mean, that people do want to hear from us, that we are an expert on something, maybe not everything, but we are experts on something, and like really claiming that. I think I'll just I'm gonna pick on my husband too. He overheard me say this metaphor. He really enjoyed it, and he's like, "It's daring yourself too." I said, "Yeah, I feel like I'm the first grader teaching kindergartners how to tie their shoes." That's the difference between me and a lot of the people who listen to me and who I'm presenting to. But sometimes he was telling me, but sometimes you're afraid to get into the second grade, and it is true. It's like sometimes we're afraid to get into the second grade, and so. Just, you know, pushing myself further, because I mainly have worked around crowdfunding and fundraising and helping nonprofits. And so shifting that now, and just recently the biggest event that we've done to date was this 3-day virtual Latinx art series, where I brought in together like 30 different local Latino artists from around Diane County, and out of that it spurred like a team. Like all of a sudden I have a team. I was like, whoa, where did that come from? And that's been really fun. And so now we're expanding our services to other parts of Wisconsin, and like so other businesses and so forth. So not just artists, but that's where we started. And just learning too that so many artists out here who it's not so much that they're struggling, it's like really closing that gap of like technology. Yes, they're struggling, but two, it's like the lack of ambassadorship of like folks kind of like help, you know, just like, hey, let's push yourself to just get a Venmo, you know, just pushing yourself to get this, that, and some things that come so easy for some of us, you know, because we don't have the language barrier, right? That's one thing, right? Or you don't have, you know, just having the tech savviness of just like being daring with your phone. And then some people just not plainly not trusting technology, and then having to all of a sudden, because if that's, you know, what you're doing. So I really enjoyed the presentation on crowdfunding. You know, we talked a little bit about Kickstarter. Kickstarter is also another crowdfunding platform, but we really talked about GoFundMe and the Kiva. And so learning how to position ourselves in a way that it is helping our art, but indirectly in the way you can do that and utilizing these platforms.
That platform, I mean, it is using those is inform a way of collaboration, right? Because you're bringing your community together, and it's just taking it in a different form, I suppose. But it's really important to have that community around you to build off of.
Right. And just like we were saying, like, okay, I'm going to dare myself to do 5 calls in 1 month. Imagine doing 10, 12, 20 of those in a short period of 4 days, because that's what you have to do for Kiva in order to go from your private fund to your public fund. And so some of those folks are doing that regardless of having the language, not even having the technology. And some of them, they're just doing it on phone calls. I was like, whoa, that's so awesome, you know. So I'm still in touch with the Kiva Madison group. I'm still helping out some of the smaller micro entrepreneurs that are gearing up through WIBIC. And so that's kind of the serendipitous connection that has happened since since the presentation, is that I'm continuing to work with some of the folks there at WIBIC who are bilingual, bicultural, and helping those micro entrepreneurs in Madison grow. So if y'all have some extra change, please go over to Madison Kiva and help support some of these micro businesses, because it took them a lot of guts just to get to that public funding phase where anyone in the public can do it. And so more that I learn about it, I'm just amazed of like the bravery that artists and other entrepreneurs are showing up for, in spite of COVID, right?
Right, in spite of, right? It was interesting. I got an email from one of those entrepreneurs asking me to be a funder. And before I even got on Kiva, she was already in the public and closed out her public campaign. I was like, that was all in like 24 hours. I was like,
Yes.
it's amazing. And so for those of you that haven't been involved in Kiva or looked it up, I would highly amplify what Araceli just said about Kiva. Madison is a Kiva city. There is potential matching funds, and it is an amazing program. So whether that's for you or someone else in your world, it's absolutely something that you should look into and be aware of as part of the funding world. And I know Mark dropped in the chat, but I want to make sure I highlight too that Dane Arts is a great collaborator. Mark is a fabulous person to reach out to if you are looking to collaborate on a project. Those are much easier to fund, as he mentioned. But it is also, Dane Arts is a great way to amplify your story and what you're doing, and finding great ways to reach out. I would encourage you to do that as well with you and your crew, or just yourself. Excellent. Let's see. I don't think I missed any of our presenters on that question. So I'm going to go on to our third question here in the last bit, and then we can open it up for just any last thoughts that people have. But what is and I don't want to say final piece of wisdom, because wisdom grows and changes, but what is a piece of wisdom or thought that you would like to share on the future of the arts for those that are listening? So the future of the arts and are participating in DABL, but really looking at the future of the arts and business, the business side of arts. What are some final pieces of wisdom or advice that you'd want to pass on to the other creative folks that are listening today? And I am going to start with Tommy.
Well, we've been painting on our walls for tens of thousands of years. I don't think we're going to stop anytime soon. It's a solid future.
Literally, because we have been seeing murals just popping up more and more and more. So from the literal to the figurative and both, you know, I think that I agree that the arts are part of that, that progress in that future. So
it's fundamental to who we are as a society, as well as a species. It defines us. It's not going to stop defining us because of a problem in the world or tech. We're always going to be who we are. And I think a future in the arts is about as secure as you can get. That's my wisdom.
That's a great piece of wisdom. I really appreciate that one. Olivia, how about you?
Yeah, I mean, to kind of go off that, I think seeing more and more artists view themselves as entrepreneurs and as businesses, because you know, it's the way that we can do this full time, and it's the way that we can continue doing projects that we're passionate about. And so I think seeing things with DABL and seeing more artists talk about themselves as a business and value their work at the same level, and teaching businesses how they should value their work, is something that I hope continues, because it's very much needed. So I think that's something that's starting to see, and as we see it, like in the pandemic, art has been one of the things that has helped so many people. And I think seeing this trend of people encouraging each other to buy local art, still support the artists through whether they're pop-up markets virtually or whatnot, that I hope this is a continued spark of customers valuing art for what it should be valued at. And I hope that artists kind of help continue pushing that of charging what they deserve to be paid, working with more businesses and all that good stuff. So I hope that's a trend that continues forward.
Araceli, I'm going to go to you now.
I was reading what Mark was writing. All right, I'm going to turn on my camera then. Hello. Yes, what kind of suggestions do I have for the future too, Mark? Oh my gosh, there's so many. I think one thing that, again, that there's definitely like 100 level, and then there's like 200 level, right? There's definitely like 100 level that we're trying to close that gap, that technology gap for some of our artists, some of our real traditional artists. And by traditional, I do mean like, I'm just creating because I create, I don't want to hear about A, B, and dinner even, they're just creators. It's all they. So it's about that too. And how can we help ambassador them, right? And still support them. And I think as a community, we've been doing that, and we've been relying a lot on like the city of Madison, Karen Wolf's office, and Mark as well, your offices. And I think it's on us as well as 200 our second graders, right? As second graders, we got to help our kindergartners, folks that are just starting out. And how do we do that? But through mentorship and through real intentional sponsorship and mentorship. I think somebody was talking about that in here, but I've also heard in other conferences that he was saying, I think it was this other fellow here, he was saying, I make sure that whenever they're in the office, in the circle, and they're talking about planning or what have you, that my name is being mentioned. And that's exactly what we need to do, is be being mentioned where opportunities are being held and opportunities are being decided on. And so if you know somebody in that Rolodex of yours, definitely utilize that time to uplift others. I know Rachel, thank you, Rachel. She helped me get to that Artists of Color National conference, and I attended to it even though I had COVID during that time period. And so I know, but I still attended a little bit of it, and it was so powerful. I actually learned a lot of stuff too there. There was some really awesome like surveys that were like funnel clicks, kind of determining whether you needed to pivot your career. And so I loved how artists were thinking about like career development and professional development in such a way that was easy. Okay, because it's really intimidating for artists to like think of ourselves in a business frame point. And so the way they were framing it was like this like really quick 5-minute fun survey. I had never gone through a survey that was so much fun. Anyways, and I'm pretty nerdy that way because I fill out a lot of surveys. So I thought that was really fun way. And also just like email marketing and like learning how to do newsletters. That was something I had not like really ever done in the last 4 years of my business. So this was this was one time where I really embarked in it, and I continue to do it. And I've seen results. I have really seen results on my SEO and on people calling me instead of me calling them. And so that's been fun. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And you kind of hit on a little piece too that Tommy had mentioned too, is, being that name in the room. And then I think also when you have that opportunity is to name someone else in that room, right? If you're in that space where you are in a decision-making space or a place to share new contacts, is trying to drop a new name in the room and or amplify someone else's voice that's already in there or should be seen. So I think that's great. Of course, obviously, if you're trying to get the gig, you do need to pay attention to your needs and what you're trying to do. But if you find yourself maybe on the board of directors, or if you find yourself being asked for, recommendations. I got a call from a developer the other day that was looking for something specific. And so I had 4 names that I sent him. I wasn't the person that was going to be putting that work up in that room, but I was that connector and that collaborator. So just trying to get them the information as quickly as I could. But I found for me, that was my opportunity to share the love. Because like I said, I wasn't going to be the person hanging a piece of art in the wall because I don't have any. I just appreciate it. All right, Walter, how about you?
The ones before me gave really good advice. I am going to say, I'll add to it. There's a huge pent up demand. We've basically been pent up for the last 8 to 9 months. And people are going to want to be together, and especially around art, whether it be entertainment or there's a huge demand out there. And right now, start making and preparing you and your organization be more of a business, be more what you guys said. And Tommy, take Tommy's advice. And actually, I want you to, in the next 2 months, call, let's say 4 people, 2 per month, of just connect with somebody. It could be cold call, or you kind of met somebody and I'm going to follow up with that guy who did a thing, and look for somebody that is an influencer, or buys art, or is an architect, or is, whatever you do in the art world, just start connecting with them, because when that pent up demand explodes, you will be in the front of the line, and just be there. That's what I would say. And actually, one of the first people I would connect up with is you, Megan, and Mark, and Karen. Is you guys, all of the people in not only the art world, but you also know the business side, and that's one of my passions. Is I'm not an artist, but I want to connect artists up with business, and I'm a firm believer that Madison owes artists. We're a cool city to live in because of our art and entertainment. It's not because of, we got some cool, businesses here. It's because we are a cool city, and they are attracting people that want to live here, and it's because we have a cool city. And so my task, and actually Megan and Mark and Karen, and you guys are in that space of connecting artists with business. Dane Arts, buy local. Just buy local, man. Everybody buy local. All right. And you're going to see more and more of that. You're going to see more and more of that. Just be ready for it. All right.
That's great advice. Rachel, what about you?
I'm remembering to unmute myself this time. I would say, remembering all the things that are in your skill set or your wheelhouse. I mean, we've talked a lot about pivoting tonight, but I think there are things that, at least for me, I know I've had to be a Jill of all trades at some point in different times in my life. So I've done many different things. And it's been interesting to kind of circle back to some things that I maybe haven't had to do or haven't done professionally for a while. For me, that's been visual art. I've actually gotten asked to make some visual art a couple times this year. And it was really cool just to kind of reach back. I mean, that's actually one of the things I studied when I first went to school years ago. But like I said, because I've been so focusing on writing and graphic design and these other things, working in the media for a number of years, it was cool to kind of pursue and just kind of explore that. Doesn't mean I'm going to go and start advertising my services as a professional artist to different people, but I also think creativity feeds creativity, right? It's a fuel, and it's a way to just keep inspiring me to create whatever I'm creating, and helping other people just remember, like, things are challenging. It was been very life-giving and affirming just to kind of realize that, like, all of me is still there despite all the craziness that has happened in 2020. And so I just encourage everybody to do that. Whether you're going to do it just for yourself or serve someone else, just explore those things, rediscover all of your passions, and use them as a way just to kind of heal and continue just to kind of take a step every day forward until we get to 2021 and on the other side of COVID.
Whichever one comes first.
Yes, whichever one comes first. Oh, and I do want to say, Mark reminded me, yes, and then the Little Book website was also funded by Dane Arts, so, which I got an emergency grant from during the earlier part of COVID in order to finish the website, because, yes, I was not prepared to all of a sudden have that happen, but I still needed the website done this year. So Dane Arts is an amazing resource for so many different things.
Yeah, right. You hit on funding, you hit on marketing, all of those pieces. So yeah, Dane Arts is our cultural and arts commission. So they, Mark is doing an amazing job making a lot of those connections. So, and I think that sort of hits on that, we are connectors and collaborators, and we want to help. We are your friend, not your foe. So make sure you reach out, because really, I think it gives us a lot of joy and satisfaction to be able to make those connections and watch that relationship grow and watch what happens on the other side. So by all means, even though some of us sit in government places, it does not mean that we are not accessible and really there and ready to help. So make sure you do reach out. I know we have a handful of artists on this call today on our Zoom here. I want to give you guys a chance to unmute if you'd like, and give us some ideas about what are you looking for to learn? What could Dane Arts do or DABL do to support you as a working artist? And I'm going to give James a chance, and then Mark Weller, you'll go next. James.
Hi, good evening, everybody. My name is James Shulkin. I've been sort of dabbling in art for about 10 years or so. I started making windmills, giant kinetic sculptures, and now I've transitioned to making sculptures that are more tabletop in design. First I made a lot of fish, now I'm making a lot of birds, and they're all, you know, sort of about this tall and this big, and they're made of foam and paper and paint and all kinds of found materials. So, you know, I've enjoyed the webinars, and one thing that I did do since COVID came around is I'm not really selling anything anymore because all my opportunities are pretty much gone in terms of meeting people face to face. I have some work in galleries, but that's been really slow. I took an online class in sculpture. I thought that was really worthwhile. The one thing that I'd love to see from DABL, you talked a lot about reaching out to people who are decision makers. Do we have a list? Do you have a list of people who are buyers and architects, or people who are really have the resources and wherewithal to make placements for art and buy art, other than just galleries?
Awesome. So some sort of catalog or something. The catalog's not the right word. That's why I was like, what is the word?
I was gonna say maybe other connectors, right? Other
Right, like a director.
influencers and stuff.
Are they architects? Are they designers? Are they builders? Are they interior designers? Like Tommy was talking about, he's got all these connections. He's been doing it for a long time, and he reaches out to those connections. Who are those people in Dane County or in the region that have the wherewithal to say, oh yeah, I can place your art here because this project's going on, beyond just DABL?
It's called LinkedIn.
Yeah, well, that's a good point, and I've.
That is really true. But I hear what you're saying though, James. I'm a shy person myself. I'm much more a collaborator than I am a driver, and just acknowledging that though too. And in my team though, I've been able to, you know, hone in with some drivers, you know, and even getting that script down. You know, just getting that closing script. And I think Walter's class sounded like he did that in his class. So, you know, I would even hit up Walter here for a little, you know, a session. I know that's why what I do in my business plan is, in my business funnel, is that I overcharge the guys that can actually pay, right, so that I can give back to my community, right? So I exclusively give Latinas, you know, sorry, James, so I do give Latinas free consultations that ordinarily would cost people upwards of $500, right? But for these Latinas, I'll do it for free. And so I think that's the intentionality circles that we need to DABL perhaps to think about, you know, that real intentional one-to-one mentoring. But I hear you, James. I'm shy too.
Awesome.
Yeah, LinkedIn is a very good idea, and I should probably leverage that. I have a professional career in healthcare and writing and all that, which I've retired now, so I've never really focused on LinkedIn as an artist. And are there categories of people I should be looking for to connect with?
I definitely think that's, I love your idea, James, and it will be definitely something that we can look into, and what types of resources are out there and how to find new ways to do those connections. Mark Weller. Oh,
James,
sorry, Tommy.
James, when you go on LinkedIn, find people that you like, that you think are cool on LinkedIn, maybe people you know, or people who are doing what you want to be doing. Look at their profile and make sure you understand what's right and wrong about their profile, and build one for yourself that is similar to what you want to be doing. So it's a lot of research ahead of you, but if you get your profile so that you are one of the people you want to be, that is the hard part. The rest of it's going to be surprisingly easy.
And Megan, I would say that would be a good session of what James just asked. That would be a great topic.
Mark Weller, do you have something to add to that?
Yeah, and as a subtopic, maybe an entire night on LinkedIn. So
True,
As-
very true. Because that
as-
in of itself is can be
Wayne Breitbart is the expert on LinkedIn. If anybody knows him, he's out of Milwaukee. Wayne Breitbart.
Oh yeah, Wayne is
That's-
great. Yeah,
Yeah.
Wayne's really good. Yeah, but I would even say somebody that's more of I mean, yeah, someone that can also talk about the arts and like specifically, you know.
Yeah.
Now, let me chime in here real quick about
It feels like I'm
Wayne Breitbart.
I just want to
if
say
you-
that, oh, sorry.
Rachel, why don't you go, and then Tommy, you can go after Rachel.
Oh, I just wanted to say that I think it would be good to have some type of session, or at least start the conversation locally about what it would look like for there to be more collective and cooperative resources amongst organizations and artists in particular, so that people can be less dependent upon philanthropy or funding specifically from grants. I mean, especially when people need aid. I mean, sometimes the grant process can be very lengthy. That's not true for everything. But I think it'd be great to kind of start some of that dialogue about what would that look like to kind of create more mutual aid.
Awesome, thank you. That's in the mutual aid piece. I like how you brought up that specific terminology. Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you, Rachel. Tommy, what did you have to add to that last piece about LinkedIn, I think?
Yeah, so if you are looking at Wayne Breitbart, if you're looking at him on LinkedIn, in real life, he is the real deal. He's evangelical about what he does, and he's serious about it. And he's got a lot of good advice. More importantly, if you really looked at his profile, you would know that he also owns an office interiors company. So
Devil, yeah.
things you might find when you're looking around on LinkedIn.
Hmm.
And he often gives his seminars in the facility. So it would be wise to attend one of his presentations in person.
I think Mark Frahe, I think you often mention that when you hire an artist, you get more than one professional. You get the artist professional, but you also get their other gig thrown in for good measure, or vice versa, depending. So, you know, yeah, it's always important to read not just the first paragraph, right, but read deep into what they're doing and find if there's some other more pointed questions you might be able to ask and some connections within there. So when we take the time to know each other, we learn a lot. Well, I want to be mindful.
What-
It is 8 p.m.
What was Mark's question?
Oh, I thought he asked it. Sorry, Mark Weller. You go ahead and ask that last question. Well, you'll get the last word on this one.
That was merely a knee-jerk reaction. Just a couple comments. Number one, you know, as you're trying to figure out next year's DABL, I would frame the whole thing in connections. This is a primary connection for Madison-based artists. So whatever you do, make sure you continue to nurture the notion of connectivity amongst artists. Two, I just did a real quick inventory here. I've participated, I think, in 10 DABL events. Now this year was obviously the train went off the rails because of COVID, but I like those. Those are, you know, I'm still a little old school that if somebody's going to drop $2,000 on a piece of art, more often than not, they're going to want to see it. They're going to want to touch it. They're going to talk to the artist. The DABL events have provided that outlet. So I'd encourage you, maybe not do as many as you have in the past, but at least once a year, try to pull something off together. And the final thought is, there was high hopes about, I think it was Dapper, was that what it was called? And that just seemed to drop. And I'm not sure where that's at, what the status is, but that might be a good thing to just kind of follow up and see where that, if it's alive.
Oh, you opened up the whole can of worms there, Mark Weller.
Oh, he turned on his camera and everything.
Yeah. Uh-oh. You
That's because I'm
poked
drumming now, so we're
poked
okay.
the sleeping bear.
I have woken the sleeping giant. Uh-oh.
Quickly on Dapper, Mark. They didn't meet the benchmarks. It wasn't working the way I wanted it to. I was hoping more of an app on your phone. It became a website app, and it got really convoluted. Spent about $7,000 just to get it going, and I thought I better cut it before we spent any more because I just wasn't. These are great young kids. I love them dearly. We're good friends, but it just didn't have the punch I needed, and so that's where it ended. So we took Dapper down. It's really disappointing because I had hopes for this to be an app for all disciplines to work more closely together and to go as a go-to. So we'll keep trying, but thanks for bringing that up. That's what happened.
Well,
It happens. It happens. These are young kids who are really energetic, and they put a lot of guts into this. It just didn't meet expectations.
and welcome to life. And I get that. And I don't mean to put you on the spot, but let me nudge you that concept of, if you are a business and you're saying to yourself, oh, we're going to need some art around here, and here is the Dane Arts Buy Local website, to go and start sniffing at all kinds of different, creative, wonderful, affordable art is still a fantastic idea. It may be a mountain that we can't climb without spending tons of money, but the concept, I just want to nudge you gently that concept remains, I think, a very good idea.
Thank you. Thank you. We'll keep working at it. There's got to be some way to connect all of you individual artists to the public to generate revenue. I know there's got to be, you know, and my role, I believe, at Dane Arts is to help facilitate that. So I need your suggestions and your ideas to be able to implement them versus me coming to you seeking support. So I welcome your ideas all the time, and I really appreciate. Honestly, I wasn't sure if DABL's going to happen in 2021. Megan's on her way to a new world, so she's jumping out of DABL. We still have Sarah with us, and we may add another person. I want to thank Megan and Sarah certainly for the past several years. This is our 6th year, so we'll be going into year 7, but I was hesitant. But you all just tonight convinced me that, okay, this is something we need to continue doing. And I really like the way the discussion happened tonight. Everyone having a voice and really sharing on what we can do together. This is probably the first time I've been on Zoom where I really felt like, wow, I like this. But
that's thanks to all of you. So
Too funny.
yeah. Well, and
parties at Tommy Sweeney's porch there tonight. What time does your party start? 10? Tommy?
As soon as we wrap this up.
All right.
Well, on that note, I want to again amplify what Mark just said and thank everyone. Thank all of our presenters. Thank you for all of the artists and your creativity and what you bring to our city and to our community. We are forever grateful. I am grateful for my 6 years work with DABL and the connections and collaborations that I have made. It has been an honor, and I am also here for you. So if you have any questions or thoughts and want to collaborate, don't hesitate to hit me up as well. Sarah, thank you for all that you've done. You know, quietly in the back of scenes, Sarah's doing tons back there, and we're very grateful. And we are going to sign off until you see our next schedule coming out. So keep your eyes out for that, and don't forget to connect. So thanks, everyone. We really greatly appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
Bye.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you very much. Nice job.